Judo Way of Life podcast. So back again with Australian Judoka Aoife Coughlan. We first caught up back in 2022, so if you haven't listened to that episode yet, go and check it out, where we discuss how Aoife got into judo and her journey up until that point, which included winning the 2022 Commonwealth Games in Birmingham. So today, following the announcement that Aoife has been successful in her second Olympic campaign, I'm very excited to have her back on. Hello Aoife, how's it going?
Hey Dave, I'm good. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, good. Thank you for agreeing to come on and have a conversation again. It's been nearly 2 years since the last time we spoke, which I don't know for you, seemed crazy when I went back and had a look.
Yeah, it's both been the longest 2 years and the shortest 2 years of my life, I reckon. It feels like I went from Tokyo to Birmingham to Paris now. It hasn't been non-stop.
Yeah, well, things were sort of fast-tracked in terms of the this Olympic cycle. I'm not sure if there's been a 3-year Olympic cycle before, but not as
Probably not ever.
no. So let's go back to where we were. So I think it was October 2022 we were talking last, obviously on the back of your success in the Birmingham Commonwealth Games. And yeah, let's talk about what's been going on since then.
I'm pretty much same old, training very hard, trying to sharpen up the things that I need to sharpen up. I've had some really great results in the past 2 years with my first Grand Slam and Grand Prix medals, and same with Katerina. She's had some amazing results in the past 2 years as well. So this Olympic cycle has been probably the best one Australia's had as a whole in a long time, results wise. So yeah, I've been working really hard in the gym and on the mat to just sharpen everything up so I'm as good as can be come Paris.
In terms of those results, what do you think has been the main difference in terms of both yourself and Katerina? Has there been any big changes that have led to you being able to achieve those results?
Yeah, I think the training group we have down in Melbourne at the NPC has been really incredible. The group we have keeps pushing everybody to be better every day. And I think having the access to those partners that are around my weight has been really, really good. Having Katerina down, obviously, she's top five in the world in the weight class below me. So having her as a training partner every day is invaluable. Um, Other than that, apart from the physical side of it, I think mentally, I did a lot of work after Tokyo to get myself back into a good headspace because looking back on it, Tokyo wasn't great for me mentally. So it was a lot of work done with that and just making sure that my mental prep was as good as my physical prep because I figured out pretty quickly after Tokyo that they both have to be on point if you want to be performing well.
Do you mind going into a bit more detail in terms of the mental prep? Because it's something I do like to ask athletes and coaches that I've also had on the podcast, because it's an area that I think, well, it really interests me, and I think is overlooked quite often for a focus on the physical training.
Yeah.
So, what were you doing post Tokyo Olympics?
Yeah, so it was a lot of introspective. Where was I actually feeling emotionally? Where was I mentally when I was actually competing in Tokyo? And actually taking a big critical look at where was I actually at mentally for that, and what was lacking? Was I just so tired that I need to work on trying to make sure that I'm emotionally regulating myself better? Was I just not concentrating? Was I lapsing? Do I need to work on strategies for staying concentrated and focused during fighting? And it turned out to be a couple of the things. Emotionally, I was very drained with everything that happened before Tokyo with COVID and other things around selection and all that sort of stuff. Um, and then also just more recently looking into what tools do I need to have to be able to recharge myself in the middle of an 8 minute golden score, because I tend to have a lot of them, to stay focused and not make those little mistakes that can cost you a fight. So I do a lot of work with my sports psych around having those little strategies for recharging in the middle of the fight, little tips to get myself back into being focused with trigger words. And then I practice that a lot during training. So every training session I do, I'm practicing all of those little techniques that we have around keeping myself focused, recharging my battery. How am I getting myself in this, and how am I going to drag myself through this to perform as well as I can?
Yeah, I think that's a really important point you just made there about the practicing during training. Something my coach was really big on, and I think it's sometimes overlooked. The importance is overlooked by athletes, and they think sometimes it's just going to miraculously happen during a contest, and like I say, turn up to training and just focus on the physical, on the judo mat and in the gym. So I think it all goes hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what you do on the mat translates directly to what you do in a competition. And if you're not practicing something during randori, how are you supposed to know how to do it in competition? So for me, when I'm training, I'm treating my randori like it's my competition. I'm doing it exactly the same way I would as I step out on the mat to fight at a grand slam. So I'm making sure that I've mentally prepped myself for training. And in between each randori, I'm doing all of my little tips and tricks and little strategies to get myself, if I've had a bad randori, I get myself back up so that I then have a good one in the next one. And if you're not practicing that, it's just as bad as not practicing any of your physical stuff in the gym. So you have to work on it every day.
Touch on the you said about the randori there and how you practice you're trying to simulate for competition. Would you would you say that all your randori is competition focused randori, or do you play around with different strategies within that?
Yeah, so it depends on the training cycle that I'm in or the week that I'm in. A lot of it is competition style with different things that I'm tweaking. So I have certain stipulations around what I'm doing, what my partner does sometimes. We do a lot of drill based stuff as well. So the longer randori is probably a little bit more freedom to move and to try different things that I've been working on, all around still having the same intent and intensity that I would have in competition. So where it might not be, you have certain stipulations around what you're doing, but the intent and the intensity has to be the same as if it was a competition so that you're practicing having that every day.
I know you said before, obviously, you train and work a lot with Katerina, but in terms of training partners, do you find it difficult to find people to challenge you in randori?
Um, no, I'm lucky. I'm a middleweight, so we've got a great group. We've got my sister, we've got Maeve, we've got Sire Middleton, who's the next best 70. We've got Maria Swan here at the NPC as well, and then I've got my coach Emil, Owen Roberts Mock, who's just gone back on the mat after an ACL reconstruction, and he's really pushing me hard. And then we've got Tom Pappas as well. So I'm in that lucky group where I can fight the bigger girls and they challenge me, and then I can fight the smaller boys and they challenge me physically as well as mentally. So I'm in a really good spot where I don't struggle so much with partners, and I'm really lucky for that.
Do you get many opportunities for training overseas?
Yeah, we travel a lot. I think we've been overseas for like about 3 months of the first 6 months of this year so far, and we always try and couple competitions with training camps and training opportunities to make it worthwhile. So you're not just flying in for a competition, flying out, because as you know, travel is very hard from Australia, so you have to try and make it worthwhile. And so we'll usually have two competitions, one or two training camps, or training opportunities in a club that we have a connection with, or something like that, to make it really worthwhile.
This is the nice segue into my next question is how is this comparing to the lead up to the last Olympic cycle, considering the the difference in the way the world is being operated?
Yeah, it's completely different to Tokyo. Tokyo with COVID was just, honestly, you think back on it and you're like, how did I get through that? How did I manage to do anything that I did during that time? Because it's just so crazy. But this one, and even like my qualification for Tokyo, I was kind of chasing my tail a little bit to try and make sure I qualified directly, because I hadn't had some of the results that I maybe should have. So that was it different feeling to this one, where I was in qualification quite early and I knew I was performing well enough that I could even maybe get myself seated. And so I was hunting a seated spot rather than chasing a direct spot. So it was a much different feeling, freedom to travel where you wanted to travel, when you wanted to travel, open schedule. You could pick and choose a little bit more, especially if you were getting good results. So it's just completely different to Tokyo. And I don't think there'll ever be another cycle like that where you have to do all this sort of stuff. I hope there's never another cycle for that. I don't want any other athletes to have to go through that again.
Yeah, it was a very strange time for everyone, I think. And Yeah, it's going to be. I'm really excited to watch these Olympics because Tokyo was good to watch, but it just felt like it was lacking something. And
Yeah,
like I've only ever been a spectator at the Olympics, and I was there at London 2012, and it was an insane atmosphere. Um, and I don't know what it was like. I think we discussed it in the last podcast a little bit, being a bit different.
yeah, a little bit. It was a little bit weird, but silent. Like, luckily you had like teammates and coaches and stuff up in the crowd. They could get a little bit of energy up in there. But I'm really looking forward to the crowd in Paris because, as we all know, French are insane about their judo and they love their athletes and everything. So it's a nice intimate arena. Should be super loud. Should be really good. I've also got my parents coming over, which is fantastic, and a few more family members. Like my nan, who's 91, is coming from Ireland with a couple of my uncles and cousins. So I actually have some family support this time, which is going to be 100 times different to what it was last time.
Yeah, the French crowd definitely are not a quiet crowd. Have you ever competed? Did you compete the Paris Grand Slam?
Yeah, I've competed at Paris Grand Slam a couple of times. This
Yeah,
year, I happened to be fighting a French woman in, I think, my second fight, maybe my first fight. I'm not entirely sure, and she was a lower grade French woman, and they were still going a bit crazy for her. But I remember I went in and I watched Teddy, and every time he came out, I'd have my phone open recording the crowd when he came out and then when he won. And it was just insane. You can hear it so clearly how much they love their their athletes and judo. It's just like crazy because I was trying to describe it to my strength and conditioning coach and he just didn't understand. So I was like, okay, I'm going to record it for you so you can hear what it's actually like with a country that loves and respects judo.
yeah. I've tried to explain it a few times, and just can't unless you've been like I've only ever been to as a spectator. We used to go every year and then sneak on the training camp afterwards, and it was just an incredible experience just to see judo, like you say, loved so much, especially
Yeah.
when you come from like in Great Britain. We have a reasonable numbers, but still not great. And then, especially coming into Australia and just seeing what the competitions are like here in terms of involvement from spectators and well participants as well. You just can't really get your head around how big a competition it is. And like you say about Teddy, I saw him when he in Paris a few times, and it's just deafening. And even in the London 2012 Olympics, when he was fighting on that last day, and you couldn't hear anything. Like I'd say, probably
Yes.
two-thirds of the crowd were French, and it
Yeah.
was absolutely wild, wild.
Yeah, I can hardly hear yourself think when him or Clarice are on. It's crazy.
Um, so going into this Olympics, obviously it's a different kind of mentality, different kind of approach in terms of the selection process, and where you're actually positioned. Um, what are you mainly focusing on in terms of your
Uh,
training?
yeah, so physically, like my strength and conditioning, I'm in really good shape, so that's not really a problem. That's just keeping that sharp and ready to go. On the mat, it's just sharpening my tactics, just really trying to finish my throws well. And like I said earlier, that intent and that intensity to finish fights and to finish throws so that I don't have to fight for 10, 12 minutes. I'll do it if I have to because I'm fit enough and I'm strong enough, but I really don't want to if I can avoid it. So trying to finish my throws and really work on that so that can get in and I can get out because I can beat these girls. I just need to make sure that I'm like ruthless on it.
Is there anything you're doing specific to train that drive?
Yeah, Daniel's on my back about it. He's been really good. Daniel and Emil and Alex and that and all the guys I train with, they're really putting it on me, making me push, push, push. And if I'm not pushing, they're calling me up on it. If I'm not finishing my throws, they're calling me up on it, and I have to start finishing pretty straight on. Otherwise, technical sessions are purely working entirely on the finish of my throws, making sure that I can get them from any position that I'm in, regardless of if it's an ideal position or not. And then we do a lot of drilling from different situations: top grip, sleeve, double sleeve, um, poor posture, fixing all of that to then get into a good position to throw.
I'm glad you said this. I'm going to use this as evidence for some of my athletes because I bang on all the time about finishing throws off, making sure you're trying to throw the person, like I say, try and throw them through the floor. Obviously, you're
Yeah.
not, but it's just the attitude of trying to finish off the throws. And I talk all the time about how you look at these top athletes, and obviously, a nice throw, it's great to get a nice throw. But a lot of the time, the judo's like looks messy, but it's the determination to finish is what gets the technique done.
Yeah, 100%. And with the way the rules have changed about what counts as a score, what doesn't count as a score, 90% of the time you can get a score if you just keep driving through and just not letting up because you're like, oh, they've got out of it. Just keeping pushing all the way to the ground. That's something I've been working on for a couple of years now. I'm still not quite there, but it's just that ruthlessness to finish a throw and not let it up is really important.
Who do you think is a good example? Is there anyone you sort of admire in that regard?
Well, someone that I get to look at a lot every day is Katerina. She is absolutely ruthless in the way she throws and finishes throws and the way she trains. She, regardless of what position she's gotten into, she's going to try and drive you into that mat. And so that's something that I watch every day. And then within my own division, I think a good example of someone finishing throws we saw at World Championships in Abu Dhabi was Pino. She may not have been in the best position in some of her fights, but she was determined enough to go through, drive through, and finish every throw. So I think it's and she has a similar style of judo to me, so it's definitely something I can look at uh, to try and finish my throws.
Yeah, nice. And in terms of, it might be a bit of a weird question. I don't know. Is there anyone you look forward to fighting on the international circuit?
I look forward to fighting everyone. There's definitely like girls that I go, okay, that's definitely more of like a harder matchup for me stylistically than others, but I love the challenge of judo and I love how you can one day be beaten by someone, but if you fought them the next day, you'd beat them. And it all comes down to how you're feeling, how you're fighting on that day. So there's I enjoy fighting everybody. And I look forward to the challenge that they all bring about. There's definitely a couple in there that are very tricky situations for me that I have to be very careful with and very tactical with. But yeah, they're all, especially here at the Olympics, like they're all incredible athletes and they've all got a different quality to them that makes them such world-class athletes. And it's great to be able to look at that and to interact with them and have a go at taking it to them, because they're all world-class and it's what you want to be doing is competing at that level and matching them. So yeah.
And in terms of just on the you said about the attitude towards throwing, so that's something I learned the hard way in both Russia and Japan. Was I was really sort of like I'd been thrown a lot before then on training camps. I think I was in Russia maybe when I was 17 years old, and Japan when I was 18 the first two times. But just spending a block in those two countries and just really experiencing how they train, very different styles of training, but with the same intensity to like really throw. Is there anywhere for you that you've been and that you enjoy training, or you've really experienced that sort of intensity?
Yeah, I mean, Japan and Europe as a whole like are completely different styles, as you say. So when you go to Japan, you're getting a lot of volume, long randoris. They're a little lower in intensity of like amount of attacks, but the gripping intensity is high. And once they explode into throw, they explode into throw. But the overall level of randori is probably slightly lower intensity than, say, if you were at a training camp in Europe. So I enjoy going to Japan for that aspect of trying to figure out the gripping, not getting lulled into this is how we're going to do it kind of thing by them, but trying to lull them into my game. And then in Europe, you'll find that slightly shorter randoris, less randoris, bigger breaks, but the amount of attacks and the amount like of trying to throw is a lot greater. So the intensity of the overall randori is probably a little bit higher, but you're doing less of them. So you're probably getting in about the same amount of work, but you're really trying to go for it every single time. And I think I probably prefer that style than I do, say, the Japanese style, just because it fits a little bit better with how I fight in general, is trying to be the first person to attack every time, trying to throw, trying to take control of the fight, and keeping that high pace. So that probably fits in better with me. So I probably enjoy European training camps a little bit more than I enjoy Japanese ones, but they both are invaluable in what they give you. And it just depends on what cycle you're at in your yearly prep. So yeah.
Yeah, I'd always find on the back of a trip to Japan, I'd come back and that attack rate would be like a bit of a shock to the system. Just
Yeah.
getting back into the sort of the European style of judo. And like you say, fitness levels will be through the roof.
Yeah.
In some regards, I always went in the August as well, so it was always ridiculously humid,
Yeah.
and it would kill me for the first couple of days, and then I'd not get used to it, but I'd be like, all right, you just become slightly acclimatized to the humidity. Um, but yeah, I agree. I much prefer the European style as well. That was always my preference. Is there any way
Yeah.
you
And
don't like? Oh, sorry, sorry. Go on.
I was just gonna say, and when you think about it, it fits slightly better to international competition than, say, the Japanese training style does. At full comp prep, going to a European training camp just usually will fit in a little bit better. You want to try and block your Japanese training camps into a less competition heavy part of your yearly plan, I think, and that's where you really get the best benefit out of it.
Yeah. So I was going to ask, is there any way you don't like training?
Um, I guess it depends on the weather. If it's absolutely freezing, and there's no heating in the dojos, I definitely would not love it. But so far there's been nowhere I've been where I've gone, oh, I hate this place. I never want to come back. And I guess that has a lot to do with the people that you're with and the people that come to the training camps. Because even if you're in a less than ideal accommodation or a less than ideal spot, if the people at the camp are world class, then you're going to have a good camp because you're there you're there to get out of that camp, not to get a good accommodation. You're there to train, so you can get past the little things if you're getting a good training block in.
And in terms of your training now leading into the Olympics, because we're probably a month away.
Yeah, 31st of July is the day
Yes,
I fight, so we're getting
a
pretty
month and a
close.
week.
Yeah.
So, what's it going to look like now through then?
Yeah, so we're kind of doing a heavy week, light week, heavy week, light week kind of thing. So last week was a heavy week. It was physically and mentally very taxing. There was a lot of randori and a lot of push from the training group, which was fantastic. They were really great with last week. We go overseas this week, so a little bit lighter this week. Then Wednesday we go overseas, and then we've got 3 training camps. So we've got um, Alicante training camp in Spain first, which will be another heavy week that starts on Monday, and then we're going to Denmark to do some training with our Danish friends, and then to Hungary for Parks Junior Camp, which will be again just a heavy load of randori before heading into the village the next week. To then just short, sharp sessions until it's time to go.
And then in terms of going into the village, I mean, obviously you're going to be focused on the competition day, but things are going to look very different, I imagine, in terms of like the opening ceremony, and I imagine you're looking forward to that side of things. Will you be able to sort of get involved with that, or will you be too focused on the competition?
No, absolutely. A big focus of this prep is enjoying the experience and having fun and just being able to celebrate the successes that we've had and what it's leading up to is the culmination of the Olympic cycle. So I'll definitely be getting involved in the opening ceremony. I did Tokyo, even though it was a bit strange. This one will be completely different and it'll be a great experience. But yeah, it's not getting too stuck down and serious too early is very important. So we've got a big emphasis on having fun and enjoying training while also working extremely hard.
How important do you think that is in terms of the having fun aspect? Because again, this is something that I learnt myself, and I've tried to have these conversations with some of my younger athletes because I see them being very serious, which is obviously a good thing. You've got to take it seriously, but then where would you say the balance is between that having fun and taking it seriously?
I think having fun and enjoying what you're doing is really important because if you're not enjoying it, why are you doing it? Um, like there's no point doing something if you're not enjoying what you're doing. So for me, that's something that I've been really working on the past year or so is just making sure that I'm enjoying the environment that I'm in. I'm enjoying training and I'm having a laugh with everyone that I'm around because I'm around great people. I get to meet great people. I get to experience so many awesome things. Like not everybody has that opportunity. So taking a minute to just go, hang on, this is fun. You love judo. That's why you started. And just remembering that little kid that started and just loved running around the mats, getting under everyone's feet and being really annoying. So I think it's super important. And there are obviously times to be serious. And when you're doing randori, you're doing randori. But when you're not doing randori, you can have a laugh on the break as long as you're ready to go for the next one. It's okay. And I think it's important to get that balance right.
Was there a point for you where you had that shift in mentality? Because I know you mentioned before that, like into the Tokyo Olympics, things were a little bit mentally quite hard. Was there a turning point for you?
Yeah, I think everything that happened before Tokyo just really highlighted for me that enjoyment and being able to celebrate successes is really important because before Tokyo, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I was in not a so happy place all the time mentally and emotionally, and I was quite drained by the time I got to the village. So I think after Tokyo, when I sat down and I had a look back on it all and reflected and went, what was missing for me to be able to perform properly? Because I didn't perform to any of where near where I can in Tokyo. Um, that was one of the things that was highlighted was that I emotionally was drained and was not having a good time. And now that I consciously make the effort to have a good time and enjoy training and that kind of thing, I think you can see there's been a huge shift in my performances and in the results that I'm getting. So
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, and it was something I went through at a much lower level, obviously, than yourself. But I think it's quite common in athletes that they get stuck in that chasing results and the stress of, for me, it was like the stress of making weight for 81 kilos, the stress of finding money to pay for the trips, and I was just taking it very seriously. And
yeah,
then I wasn't getting any results because I was just too tense. I was going into fights and I wasn't actually able to do the judo that I wanted to do.
yeah,
And then that's when I took a big step back from judo and really had a think about what was going on. Then I came back in, and when I moved to Australia, I was doing the local competition circuit, but it was that mentality of, right, I'm just going to go there and enjoy myself because, like you
yeah,
said, what's the point of doing it if you're not enjoying it? And I think it's a really important point from the lowest possible level all the way up to where you are as an Olympian. And if
yeah,
you're not enjoying it, what's the point? Like, why bother
yeah.
doing the local competition if you're going to stress yourself out?
Exactly. Like my base of why I do judo is because I love it and I enjoy it. It's a great sport and it's given me so much. And then as I get into my pyramid of why I do it, the pointy end is the challenges and it's all that kind of thing. But the base of it is I enjoy judo. It's what I love to do. So as long as I come back to that base and have that strong foundation and awareness of that's my why, it's okay.
What does having fun at a competition look like for you? Because I suppose it'd look differently for. I mean, it might look similar, but it would look different, I would imagine, for some people.
Yeah, so for me, I guess having fun at a competition is probably a little different. It's looking back at my performance and saying, Was I sharp? Was I fit? Was I strong? Did I fight with freedom? And if I've fought with a bit of freedom and without fear, then that for me is what encompasses enjoying the competition. And even if the results maybe not what I was hoping for, as long as I've fought with freedom and without fear, I'm going to be able to go back when I do my video analysis and say, okay, this is where the mistake was, but overall my mental state was in a good spot. So it was just this one thing that needs to be fixed.
When you say without fear, can I just ask you to expand on that a little bit? Because I suppose when you go into well, for me, you go into competition, you get nervous.
Yeah.
So maybe just to clarify what that difference
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So when I say fighting without fear, I don't mean that I'm not nervous at all or that I'm with who I'm fighting or anything like that. I'm obviously I'm completely I'm nervous, but I'm not over the top nervous. I'm not going into the fight with a fear of losing. So I'm not fighting not to lose. I'm going in fighting to win. And I found that that was one of the biggest things that shifted for me when I started performing well and getting wins internationally consistently was I shifted my mindset of I'm not fighting like I'm not going to lose. I'm fighting not to lose. To I'm fighting to win. And when I shifted my mindset there, I was able to manage my nerves better. I was able to have more control over what I was doing on the mat and kind of be less reactive and more proactive on the mat because I was like, okay, what am I going to do to win? Not what am I going to do to lose? Not to lose. Sorry. And I think that comes back to the same thing as fighting. If you've lost to someone 5 times, doesn't matter. You could beat them the next time. And that's happened to me a lot is I've lost there's that Tulsa do the Greek girl's beaten me, I think, 6 times to one. So you would think that anytime I step on the mat with her, I must be terrified that I'm going to lose. Well, no, it's how am I going to beat her this time? And I think, yeah, if that makes sense, it's just not being nervous, understanding that you're nervous, using that in a way that is constructive and not detrimental, and just fighting to win is what fighting without fear means for me.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point, and I think it fits in really nicely with what you were saying earlier about the determination to throw, and you can really see it when you're watching a fight. You can see sometimes who is fighting, like you say, to win, and who is just trying not to lose, and it's a really interesting view on a contest. And like you say, when you're doing that video analysis, and I don't know, like I watch a lot of judo, and I imagine you're watching a lot of your category at the minute, and
Yeah, yep.
you can really see that difference in posture, in terms of gripping, and just how the direction of the fight's going, based
Yeah,
around that
especially the
psychology.
longer. Yeah, especially the longer it goes as well. And there's certain things that people do to try and trick their opponent into thinking they're not as tired as they are. They're not as like I do all of that stuff as well. But you can see it, and as a viewer who knows judo a lot of the time, even if you don't know judo that well, if someone's slow to get up, they're bent over, the other person's standing tall, is up, fix their gi, they're ready to go straight away. Generally speaking, you're going to air towards, okay, they're feeling confident, they're ready to go kind of thing, and the other guy's like waning a little bit. So I think it's really important with your posture and all of that sort of stuff is to give off the air of you're ready to go as well.
Yeah, I know we touched on this earlier, but is that something you practice in your randori? Do you set yourself, or have you set yourself the challenge of being, if you throw, obviously being most of the time you already stood up, but maybe you roll through to still being there ready to go, or even if you have been thrown, trying to get up before your partner?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things that I work on a lot is my posture, my body language. I'm always the first one up after an exchange. I have to be the person who breaks the exchange in the randori. Even if I don't throw, I finish the exchange. And then I'm up and I'm ready to go and I'm putting pressure on my partner and I'm gonna break them mentally throughout the randori so that I can do it on competition. And the girls and the guys like I train with are really great at pushing me like that as well. Like we're in a really good spot with all of that. And I don't if you have to have a partner that's up for it because it's hard work, but we're all really up for it and push each other extremely hard to be able to replicate that in randori so that we can do it in competition.
Yeah, having a group of like-minded, slightly unhinged individuals that
Yeah,
are
exactly, exactly.
prepared to do
We
that.
all
Like
have, yeah, we all have the
I was
same
very
dream and
fortunate.
goal. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I
we're
was very
gonna push each
fortunate.
other to be the better ones. Yeah.
Yeah, it's when I look back on the people I had around me and the way I was with them as well, like very fortunate because we just wanted to beat each other up, but we were
Yeah, and
still
then
the best of mates
when it's
afterwards.
yeah, when it's done, it's done. You're not trying to hurt each other, you're just trying to push each other. It's really hard. And when it's done, you shake hands, you give each other a hug, you go, that was awesome. And then you go and you good as can be. It's great.
Yeah, and I think I think it's quite common in judo, and I haven't probably had enough experience in other sports to be able to fully comment on this, but like it is something in judo that, as I'm sure you can confirm, it's very rare that it boils over into something more. Of the amount of
Yeah.
randoris I've done over the years around the world, I could probably count on one hand the amount of times that those emotions have bubbled into something a little bit more feisty.
Yeah, and generally speaking, if it does, that happens at an international training camp with someone who's not your day in, day out training partner that you've built a relationship with and understand how much you can push each other and how much you can't. Like it rarely ever happens at home in training. Like everyone, you have such a great, strong relationship with everyone in the group that they understand that you're just trying to push each other to be better. And that's not ever really boiling over. And if it does, it's probably with Maeve, and that's probably has something to do with her being my sibling and irking me rather than anything else, or vice versa, me irking her. So, and then same thing. Once it's done, it's done. So, um, yeah,
Yeah, me and my little brother used to have a few ding dongs. He uh, he was a really good judo player, much more talented than I was, but he's just lazy. And he also had like a nasty streak as well. So he'd always be looking at ways of trying to hurt you. So he kept you on your
uh,
toes.
yeah. No, it tends to be if Maeve, because she's very good on the ground. If Maeve catches me in knee was, I make sure I throw her double the amount of times in touchy was.
It's all about balance. You got to maintain
Yeah,
that
exactly.
balance. Have you ever fought each
Exactly.
other in competitions? You're in different weights, aren't you? Or
Maeve and I have fought. It was a few years ago. She fought 70s at a Queensland International Open. And we fought. We haven't fought since, I don't think, unless it was at a Judo Victoria comp or something. But yeah, I'm still up on her on that one. She didn't quite get me, so that's still got the bragging rights there.
yeah, I think that was the most nervous I've ever been. Was when I fought my little brother, and it was in a team competition. There was no
Yeah,
weights, so he was always 73s. I was 81s, and yeah, it was the only time we fought. I was so nervous, and then he came in for a week or so to Gary, and I just thought they counted him from there. I could just feel him, just the
yeah,
relief wash over me. So I was never going to live this one down if he beat me. So
yeah. No, never. But the day she does, that's the day I'll be super proud of her because it means that she's where she needs to be and she's
yeah.
so close.
Um, in terms of your focus, obviously, is on the Olympics. What's going to happen after that?
Um, I have been thinking a lot about that, and I'm at the moment all in on another cycle. I'll be going for LA as long as my obviously 4 years is a long time, but current Aoife says 4 years she can do it. Um, yeah, I think going for an Olympic cycle with Maeve, trying to get us both there, dragging each other along for that emotional support, and will be something special. And I did an Olympic cycle with my brother Owen before Tokyo until he decided it was time to retire because it wasn't going his way. And that was a really special time. And I want to share that with Maeve as well. So I'll be going for LA. Um, currently, check in 2-3 years time. We'll see. But yeah, LA is definitely on the cards for me.
And then in terms of goals post Olympics,
Yep.
what's on the
Yeah.
horizon
So
other than
this
obviously
year,
LA?
Yeah. So this year I should graduate with my third degree as well. So I'm doing an exercise science clinical practice degree at the moment. I have 2 units left, so that's all scheduled in to be completed by the end of this year as well. And I'm also doing the IJF coaching academy course. So at the same time, so I'm kind of trying to set myself up for when I do retire in 5 years' time that I'm ready to move into a coaching role if that's something that I want as well. So yeah, a lot of things going on. Olympics this year, graduate from my third uni degree, and have an internationally recognized coaching accreditation. So lots of things going on this year. Um, yeah,
How are you finding the IGF Academy?
pardon?
How are you finding the IGF Academy?
Yeah, it's some things are a little bit like wordy and things like that. Overall, like I think it's pretty good and it definitely gives you a good base knowledge around the foundations of judo and everything like that. I found some of the history that I didn't know around the start of like the European um um like judo like European Judo Union and stuff. I didn't know much about that and the first competitions outside of Japan and things like that. So I found a lot of that quite interesting, how it all came about international and judo moved internationally. I had a rough understanding, but not very detailed. So I found that quite interesting. Um, and yeah, a lot of it is just like refreshing my memory and just like, okay, you do know this. I was quite lucky that my first club was very much a traditional martial art as well as a sport club. So they put a lot of this history and terminology and culture into how they brought me up through judo as well. So I have a lot of it in the back of my head that's been taken over by sport. So it's nice to like bring it back to the forefront a little bit and think about it a little bit more.
Yeah, the I did it in 2019, I think. Yeah, end of 2019, and it's probably one of the big drives behind how this judo way of life came about for me, and the things I learned on that course have really helped shape what I'm doing with this. I thought it was great. One of the hardest training camps I've ever done. When we did the 1 week practical, I was in
Yeah.
absolute pieces by the end of it. I've never been thrown like that much. Even after like 8 weeks in Japan, I don't think I got as thrown as much
Yeah.
on a hard mat in a sports hall floor in Melbourne. It was
Yeah.
I was broken. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I've,
We'll see how that goes, but it should be okay, hopefully. Just need to make sure I bring my partner with me so I don't end up with somebody I don't know who doesn't know me. So make sure
yeah,
someone who's doing it at the same time comes with me so I have a good partner.
yeah. I booked mine in like 3 months in
Yeah.
advance.
Yeah.
I went through the list of people. I was like,
Yeah.
well, I think I partnered up with a Vita,
Yeah.
and it makes such a difference. Such a
Oh,
difference.
completely.
Do you have to go to Japan to do yours?
Uh, no, I'll be trying to, hopefully they'll bring one to Australia for the Oceania people that have done it so they don't have to travel as far. And if they don't, then I'll figure out where to tack it on after a comp or something next year or whatever it is. So I have to look at that, but I'm hoping that they'll get one in Australia so I don't have to travel extra far to do it. But yeah,
Nice. All right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. It's been
easy.
lovely speaking with you. I really appreciate you coming back on and sort of checking back in since the last one. So,
Oh, pleasant.
if anyone hasn't listened to that first one, probably should have said this at the beginning. I'll edit the intro. If you haven't listened to the first one, go and check that one out. And I hope you've enjoyed listening to this one. Thank you very much again for coming on, taking time out of your busy schedule to come and talk to us. And then all the best for the Olympics.
No, no problem at all. Thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure chatting.
Thank you.